So here's the scoop. There is this document. I already have to make a change to it because Mr. Lever and I are feeling extra jolly this Christmas, and we're giving you extra opportunity for easy points. So the exam's about 15% of your grade. Normally, we break it into 3 parts, where it's 5% for the review assignment that you're all going to do on time completed. Yeah. And then the remaining 95% gets split evenly between the other 2 sections. We decided this year that we're going to up our review assignment because it's a lot and you spend a lot of time on it trying to figure it out. So we're going to make this 10% and this 90% of your final. So what that means is it's awesome for anyone who's going to do the review assignment. It actually hurts you for those of you that don't do the review assignment. So everyone do the review and make sure it gets submitted before I see you tomorrow. Okay, is when it should be submitted by. There is a assignment in Canvas, exam review 2. You need to submit it there, okay? The whole thing, not just the second half of it. Submit the whole thing there. What else? Don't leave questions blank. If you leave things blank on the exam review, I don't give you the full 20 points that you should be getting toward your 200-point final. If you leave things blank, I take points off because I want to just see that you tried it. So if you show me evidence that you attempted it, great. If you don't know how to do a problem on the exam review, what should you do?
Write down how to do it.
Right, but how would you know how to do it? Ask someone, ask me, ask one of your peers, or go back to your notes, right? You have notes for all of this stuff. And the questions are straight out of your notes, essentially. So if you don't know how to do something, find it in your notes and then try to walk through it that way. If it's still not clicking, fine. Then you ask me in class and we'll go over it. But please don't leave it blank. I hate taking points off your final because you just didn't show me you tried. Just show me you tried, okay? On every single problem. That'd be great. Okay, things to bring. Here's your list. I bolded these 2 because these are the 2 that make me want to cry when you show up without them. It is the worst idea to show up to a math final exam with no calculator. Not because I don't think you're capable, because most of this math you can do without a calculator. The only thing is square rooting, right? You can't really do that without a calculator if it's a funky number. Or you could, but it's going to take you forever. But it just takes you 3 times as long if you have to do it by hand than if you get to just punch it into a calculator, right? So bring a calculator, use your calculator. You only have an hour and a half. And if you go over, you don't get extra time, okay? So you have that hour and a half. Please monitor your time. If you're halfway through the time and you haven't even started the other section, you want to keep moving, okay? The written section is a little shorter than the multiple choice section, but they also require a little more like working out of things than the multiple choice section. So just keep your eye on things. If you're spending 10 minutes on one problem, you're doing it wrong. If you're spending 5 minutes on one problem, you're doing it wrong. My suggestion to you is as you take the final, if you do a problem and you get to the next problem and you're like toiling over, I don't know how to do this. What's going on out there? Oh, are they the German Shepherds? They're always here.
Really?
Yeah. It's the neighbor's dogs, like, or is it this way? I don't know. There's some neighbor. Yeah. Yeah. They show up all the time. They're actually very nice dogs, but they really shouldn't be here. Anyway, hear me, because the dogs will be fine, but you're going to take a final exam. Shoot, and now I lost my train of thought. What was I just saying? Oh, if you're spending like extra time on a problem and you just really don't know how to do it, skip it, okay? You can come back to it later. Do the ones you know how to do. Those are the ones that are going to get you the points, right? Eventually you might guess on other ones, and that's fine, but do the ones you know how to do, okay? Get those ones done. Nico.
For the multiple choice, do we use like scratch paper?
I always throw in just like a colored blank paper. So if you want scratch paper, just ask the proctor to give you a piece of that paper. But you may write all over the final. So like I don't want you using scratch paper for the written part. I want you doing all your work right there. There'll be plenty of room to show your work on that. On the multiple choice section, if you feel like it's too cramped, then you may do that on scratch paper. Good? Okay, the other thing that makes me want to cry is I tell you, you're welcome to write anything you want on a 4x6 piece of paper and bring it with you and use it for your final, and then you show up at the final without a 4x6 piece of paper with things written on it. I'm giving you, like, here, just take all the information. Please take it, okay? Bring that with you. I highly recommend you pack a bag the night before the final, because inevitably someone's going to oversleep a little bit, and in your oversleep panic, like, I got to get to my final, you forget to grab the calculator, or you forget to grab the note card, and then you're flustered coming into it already because you're late, and then you don't have the right tools. So pack it all before, get it done. Are they really still chasing the dog?
They keep running back and forth.
Ay, ay, ay. Okay. Questions on any of that? Yes, Keith.
Where can we find the exam? Like,
Go into my modules, and then it says final exams is one of the modules. Everything you need is there. Yeah, Nico.
Are we able to use compasses or we're able to use? I don't.
Borrow one of mine.
Yeah.
So I charge you at the final if you're going to borrow any of my stuff. So it's $1 for any tools that you need, because you all should have tools, right? So if you need it, you need to come early, because I leave here early to bring my finals to where I need to proctor.
oh, what about the schedule?
The exam schedule. You should have gotten an email about it, but it's in the, if you go to the student resources Canvas page, or Canvas, page. High school student, maybe it's called. It should be in there.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, so you guys will be Wednesday morning at 8:30. Okay, I am going to put up answers to the first 17. So get your review out. Okay. For now, I just want to know numbers. So we're not going to do them quite yet. I want to know all the numbers we're going to cover first. So 1 through 4, do you want any of those?
Yes.
Give me numbers.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay, we can't do every single problem. It's not going to happen. I need the legit, like, which ones do you actually need help with?
3.
Number 3.
Concept positive.
Okay, what else?
5,
6.
7.
We're going to do the whole thing, huh? We're going to be here a while, you guys. 8C. What else?
For number 10.
B. Anything else?
13.
Okay, if you need more, tell me. We'll come back to them. One thing I do want to point out, because this is absolutely on your final, and it gets done wrong a lot. Maybe you want to write it on your cheat sheet. A hypothesis does not, a hypothesis does not include what? If. Okay? The hypothesis should not include this, but I'll tell you right now, this is a multiple choice question on your final. And guess what your multiple choice options are? One that has if with it, and one that doesn't have if with it, right? So which one are you going to pick?
The one without if.
The one without if. So this is your hypothesis. Conclusion does not have then. This is your conclusion, okay? Leave the if, leave the then. I promise it's on your final. Okay, number 3. Here's what I would do if I were you. On your cheat sheet, I would write conditional, and then next to that, if P, then Q.
Are you recording?
I am. Is there an echo in here? Converse is what? Flip them. If Q, then P. Inverse is if not P, then not Q, okay? And the contrapositive, if not Q, then not P, okay? Do you remember how the truth values work on this? Which two are the same?
Conditional and
The contrapositive is true, but the conditional is false, and the converse is true, and the inverse is true.
Right, these will be the same. And the middle two will be the same. So that means you can go true, 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 false, 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 true, false, false, true, or false, true, true, false, right? But the first and last have to be the same, and the middle two have to be the same, okay? Okay, so let's lay this out. If we are going to take, if a polygon is a triangle, then it has exactly 3 sides as our original conditional. Then what is the converse of that conditional? If a polygon, what? Has exactly 3 sides, then it's a triangle. Okay, if a polygon has exactly 3 sides, then it's a triangle. What does the inverse do then?
If a polygon is not a triangle, and it does not have 3 sides.
Right, take the original conditional. I'm just going to drop it in here. Right, the difference is, oh, I forgot to say true and false on these. If a polygon is not a triangle, then it doesn't have exactly 3 sides, right? So negate both from the original conditional.
Like if we don't say exactly.
As long as it means exactly. Oh, if you didn't say the word exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, gotcha. I'm not super picky about that. I mean, it should be there, but at least I'm understanding that you understand the concept, right? Okay, and then contrapositive would be take those and swap them. So if a polygon doesn't have exactly 3 sides, then it is not a triangle, right? What's the truth value on these? True, 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 false, 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 false. All true. Right? Those are all true statements. What does it mean to be supplementary? 180. Okay, here's something I would write on my cheat sheet if I were you. Complementary equals 90. Supplementary equals 180, right? That is the bummer reason to get this wrong if you just use the wrong number. So 2 angles that are supplementary to angle 1. Here's angle 1. What would be supplementary to that?
6 and 2.
6 and 2. You need linear pairs, right? So make a straight line here. That would be the angle 2. Make a straight line here. That would be angle 6. So angle 6 and angle 2. So part B says if the measure of angle 6 is 22, then what does it supplement? So that would mean essentially what is measure of angle 1? You would say 180 minus 22, and that's 158 degrees. Okay. Number 5, this is triangle midsegment. Remember we just did trapezoid midsegment, which is different. Triangle midsegment, what's the relationship?
It's twice.
One is twice or one is half, depending on which way you're looking at it, right? So what can you do to the 10 to set equal to the 5x? Double it, right? You're going to double the 10. So 5x equals 20. So you get x is 4. Okay. Now you could have instead done what?
Done the
Right, you could cut the 5x in half. So you could say half of 5x equals 10, or double the 10 and set that equal to the 5x. Just make sure you don't do both things. That will not work. Okay, this formula is at the top of your multiple choice section of your final exam, so you don't need to write this on your note card, but if you like to just have it all in one place, you're welcome to. So midpoint formula, that's the one that says x1 plus x2 divided by 2 and y1 plus y2 divided by 2. And then the distance formula, when we're saying what's the length of something, we're saying what's the distance between those points. That's this one. Square root of x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. It doesn't matter if the x's come first or the y's come first. Yeah.
Wait, did you say just the midpoint formulas or
No, I give you the midpoint. The ones I give you are midpoint, distance, and slope. Slope is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So I'll put all three of those at the top of the multiple choice. You're welcome. Okay, so when it says to find the midpoint between these 2 points, what was good practice on this? Do you remember what we did? Call this x1, y1, and this x2, y2, right? So if we're gonna plug that into the midpoint formula, I'm gonna just jump over here so I'm not rewriting it all again. Okay, so here's my 2 points. We're gonna do distance and midpoint with that. So the midpoint is gonna be x1 plus x2, so -1 plus 2 over 2. It's always over 2 for midpoint. And then y1, 5 plus y2, -3 over 2. So this will be your midpoint. What does that work out to? -1 plus 2 is 1, right? Be careful that you don't just plug into your calculator this, because if you plug in -1 plus 2 divided by 2, your calculator does PEMDAS thinking you're trying to divide and then add. But remember, this acts like parentheses. So you need to simplify the numerator first and then divide, okay? So this is 1/2. Or if you like decimals better, 0.5. Okay, this one, 5 plus a -3 is 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. So you may write it like this, or you may write it like that. I don't care. So that's your midpoint, okay? Distance, you're plugging these points into the distance formula now. So we're gonna say the distance equals the square root of, so x2 minus x1. So 2 minus a -1, and that's squared, you guys. Like, I have the formula sitting there for you, and I can't even tell you how many people leave this little friend off of the equation, and it will be the wrong answer if you do. So make sure you put it there, Nico. Yeah. Plus, and now it's y2 minus y1, so -3 minus 5 squared. Okay, now, I would prefer at this point that you get your calculator out and you try to plug this whole thing into your calculator in one of several ways, just to make sure that you're doing it correctly, because it drives me nuts when the calculator plugging is the issue. That should be the easy part. But this is a little funky. So what you have to do, if you're gonna plug this whole thing into your calculator in one shot, you have to put an extra parenthesis in, because your calculator is gonna do this one for you. But we want this in parentheses also. So you have to have 2 of those like starter parentheses, okay? Otherwise, just do the mental math and simplify it on your own. The risk with that is, this is pretty simple, right? 2 plus 1 is 3 squared, which is 9. But this one gets done wrong a lot. Anyone know why? Yeah.
Because there's a difference between the sign in the parentheses and outside.
Right. So when you subtract this, it's a negative 8 squared. And a lot of people just go negative 8 squared. And if you plug this into your calculator, it's going to tell you the wrong thing. What happens when you square a negative? It's positive every time, okay? If you plug this into your calculator, it will be negative because this is saying the opposite of 8 squared. This is saying the opposite of 8 squared. Sounds the same. It's very different, right? So just be careful with that. So negative 8 squared is a positive 64. So you go 9 plus 64 is 73. And then you take the square root of that. Does anyone know what that came out to? 8.5? I think it was 8.5. Okay. Questions on that? Okay. Okay, number 7 is probably one of the most missed questions on the whole final. I tell you a midpoint, right? The midpoint is this. And then I tell you an endpoint, and you have to find the other endpoint. And these were always a little tougher. It's still the midpoint formula, but now you're breaking it into 2 parts. You're going to find the x side of things and the y side of things, okay? If I were you, I would write a sample version of this on my cheat sheet, just so you can refer back to it with all the numbers and make sure you've got it straight. Call this your x midpoint, this your y midpoint, this your x1, and this your y1. Okay. Yikes. There we go. So what you're going to do is you're going to take that midpoint formula and you're going to say the midpoint is equal to x1 plus x2 divided by 2. And then you're going to do it for your y values. The midpoint is equal to y1 plus y2 divided by 2. What do you do to solve these? If we want to isolate x sub 2 and y sub 2. Brittany.
Or you multiply by 2.
Yes, so we're going to multiply by 2, which makes that 1, but whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other, right? So this is going to be 6 equals 7 plus x2, and then we're going to take away the 7. So 6 minus 7 is negative 1. So that's your x2 value. Then you do it on the other side. Multiply by 2, and you get negative 10. This goes away. 1 plus y2, so take away that 1, and you get negative 11 for your y2. Now the question was, what are the coordinates of the other endpoint? So your answer, what you're going to give us here, is the point 1. Was it a positive 1? Nope, it was a negative 1. Sorry. Negative 1, negative 11. Good on that? Good. Okay. Number 8. I heard 8C. Were there any others from this one that you wanted to see? This should be SSS, right? Because we know reflexive. This should be ASA. What is C? HL. You have a hypotenuse that's reflexive. So a hypotenuse with a hypotenuse. Remember, the hypotenuse is always the one across from what? The right angle, right, is your hypotenuse. So that's a hypotenuse. These are legs, and you have a right angle with a right angle. So that is HL. This one, you have vertical angles. So angle, angle, side. I highly recommend you put those letters in because a lot of times people go, oh, that's SSA, because they see 2 and 1 and they mix up the S and the A, and then you have the wrong thing. Even though you knew, you just were calling it the wrong thing. Okay, here's something I would write on your cheat sheet. Law of detachment. You have 2 options, right? Law of detachment will say, if P then Q, and they say P is true, what do you conclude? Q is true. But if they say, if P then Q, and they tell you the Q part is true, what do you conclude? not possible, okay? Because it could happen other ways. Basically, it's saying if this happens, then this will happen, right? And they say, yep, that first thing happened, therefore that second thing had to happen. But if they say, what was the one on the test? Was it ice cream money? I don't remember. We'll just look at this one, right? If cats prowl, if P, then mice will scatter. And they say mice are scattering. Well, maybe the mice are scattering because those crazy dogs were running around them, right? So you cannot say that just because the conclusion is true, that it came because of the hypothesis. There could be a different hypothesis that could make that conclusion true, okay? So I would put that on your cheat sheet. Law of syllogism, I would also put on your cheat sheet. Law of syllogism is the one that says if P then Q, if Q then R, and you conclude what? Take out the two that are the same. If P, then R, right? That's law of syllogism. Okay? So if you look at, I think 10B was the one that someone asked about. It says, if a tree has ragged bark, if P, then the tree is unhealthy, then Q, okay? Then they go here, if a tree has ragged bark, that's if P, then the tree must be a birch. That's a different Q, or you could call it R if you want. Notice on this one, your P's are the same. So if you're really taking the two things out that are the same, you're left with, then the tree is unhealthy, then the tree might be a birch tree. Does that make sense? No. Law of syllogism should always be an if-then. Okay, you should always end up with an if-then. If you don't, it's not possible. Okay, so if you don't get if P then R, then you're going to say not possible on that. So if it's like if P then Q, if P then R, you say not possible. Or if it's if P then Q, if Q then P or something, not possible, right? It has to end up, that is possible. That would be a biconditional. I won't give it to you that way. Yeah.
So for 9B, is that not true?
9B is not possible.
Okay, but 9A is possible.
9A is possible. 9A would say, if then, they tell you the if part is true, so you will say Tamara got her driver's license. Make the conclusion.
For non-attachment, can you also cross it out? Like, you cross the same ones, and if it's...
I mean, if your P's match up.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But if your Q's match up, then it's not possible.
Is it always formatted P then Q? Or can it be Q then P?
Q then P. I mean, those are just placeholders, right?
Yeah.
So if it was Q then P, it would say you will get your driver's license if you pass a road test. This is still the hypothesis. This is still the like if portion, right? So they can switch them, but it's still the hypothesis even though it came at the end. It's whatever comes after if is P. Whatever comes after then is Q. Okay, number 13. What is the measure of angle 1 in this figure? It's a kite, right? 90. The diagonals of a kite are always perpendicular. If I were you, know what I would do? Here's what I would do. Well, yeah, I guess it depends how much space you have, but 2 sides is a lot of space and it's a big thing. I would draw that picture where it was the quadrilateral and then the parallelogram and then the rectangle and the square, the rhombus and the square. I would redraw that with all the markings, or I would write out all the properties of these things, like diagonals of a kite are perpendicular, diagonals of a rhombus are perpendicular, diagonals of a rectangle are congruent, right? Go through those chapter 6 theorems or properties and write them down so that you have them all in one spot. so from here, if I know that angle 1 is 90, so all of these are 90, angle 2 is what? 51. These two will be the same. So 2 is 51. And then how do you find 3? Right, 90 and 51, and the measure of angle 3 have to equal 180 because that forms a triangle. Okay, so that would be, what is that, 39? Okay, any questions on that? Kites? Okay, this is trapezoid mid-segment now. So it's not just cut something in half. You have to do what first? You got to add the bases, right? So if we call this X, we would say the mid-segment is half of the sum of those two things, okay? And then you just plug that in. So half of 21 is 10.5. Again, if I were you, I would draw a picture like this and a picture like a triangle and compare the two. Hello, Mrs. Hefner. Does that make sense? All right. That was it that you had questions. Were there any other ones you wanted to see? 17? Okay, so 17, you have what type of triangle there? Isosceles, right? These are congruent. So what do you know about an isosceles triangle? The legs are congruent and base angles are congruent, right? These two are the same. So you can call this X right now because it has to be the same as the other one. How do you find X? Yeah. Right, this is a linear pair, right? So if this is a linear pair, 180 minus 135 is going to give you 45 degrees. So this is 45 and this is 45, okay? Which means Y is what? Y is 90, which it doesn't look like, but they have to add up to 180. Okay. Questions on anything else that we didn't do? Sides and angles in order. Ooh, slopes of perpendicular versus slopes of parallel. I would for sure write that on your little sheet, right? If they are perpendicular, what are they? Opposite reciprocal. That's really messy, sorry. Okay, if they're parallel, then they are the same slope. Okay, while I'm thinking about it, I would also put y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1, right? This is point slope form. And maybe you want to do slope intercept form is y equals mx plus b. But I would put those forms on your sheet. We'll do more of that tomorrow because that's where those questions show up. But while I'm thinking about it. Anything else?